Hey, what's going on, guys? Sean here. Got a few things to say today. Wanted to weigh in on a few things. Back down the rabbit hole I've gone down, and there's a couple of things topics that have come up over the last week or two. One of them is, one of them is the subject of narcissism, and the other one is the subject of being swatted or police visits. And once again, I don't think that you're really gonna, there's a lot of interesting people, and I'm not really super interesting to listen to, but I know that I probably, as it relates to YouTube and it relates to this community, I'm waiting. Put it in my comments if there is one person that hasn't been through all this stuff, whether it's of my own demise or someone inflicting it upon us. There's a topic that we talk about that I haven't been through or I haven't lived through, and narcissism is no different. I know that if you saw Ladies Night, I put in the comments a couple of YouTube sites that got me through my last few months. One of them is Narcology, and one of them is Narcology Unscripted. And one of these groups had actually contacted me a year ago during last year's hurricane, during everything, when I was going through that fiasco. And they basically said that, you know, when you're ready, here's the signs, here's what you got to do, and here's what you got to do going forward when you get out of a narcissistic relationship. And I think that was a really good topic that Ladies Night had last night. I think there's a little bit of ironic about one or two of the people. I don't know who was on everyone that was on the panel, but there was somebody that was on panel that were talking about a narcissistic relationship, but they're over in other people's streams that are pretty narcissistic individuals. And but that wasn't the topic. It wasn't to start shit with anybody, but I'll kind of touch on that a little bit, because we have narcissism in this community. We got a lot of people that have a lot of experience in narcissistic relationships. And I think that what I don't know if it was touched on in the stream or not, is the phases in narcissism. You have a love bombing stage where when you meet the narcissist or you make up with a narcissist, you're just being love bombed. You can do no wrong. But then eventually, because of the insatiable traits of the narcissist, they can never be satisfied. I mean, you can be the best looking guy in the world, best looking guy, have $1 million, put her in the best house, or your partner if he's a male, have the best sex, have the best everything in the world, but because of narcissists' insatiable traits that are about them, they're never going to be satisfied. They're never going to be happy. Eventually they're going to start degrading you, and then they're going to discard you, and then they're going to smear you, and then at the end of all of that, they're going to try to hoover you back. They're going to try to woo you back. No one knows better than me that cycle, and that trauma bond, once it's formed, and the going back and going through the love bombing stage, going through the degrading stage, and then going through the discard stage, and then the hoovering. And see, a narcissist never leaves. They're still there. They text you every once in a while. They may go into the woodwork for a while, and then they come back. And it could be years. My narc was, talking about a former relationship prior to ours. Well, this person is now the love of their life, apparently. That's them going back and taking their main source of supply after I became the main source of supply, and trying to go back and get their main source supply back or woo them. See, to the narcissist, all you are, if you're involved with the narcissist, is supply. It's not love, it's not trust, it's not anything more. You are supply, and you're not the only source of supply. There's other sources of supply that are out there. But if you're the main source of supply, you might provide the income, you might have been the mother or the father of the children. But keep in mind that the narcissist is always looking for other sources of supply. And it's very, very hard to get out of that cycle. It's a trauma bond. You think it's love, you think it's whatever. You want to go back, you want to keep helping. But after a certain amount of time, if you get far enough away and you have the right support, you will learn what you're looking at, and you will learn to stay away from it. So that's what happens. They love bomb you. Then after a while, they start to degrade you a little bit, and the whole time they're searching for other sources of supply, and then they discard you. See, now the discard can go both ways. You know you're leaving, you know you're getting thrown out, or they're leaving or whatever, and you know you're going to get smeared. They're going to go all over the place. One of the things that I was able to say to some of these narcissist groups is like, well, my smear campaign, the smear campaign against me is being broadcast on a channel with, 20-some thousand subs. And so one of the narcissist groups actually knew who I was, and they were highly supportive. When that happens, it's very important, if you want out of it, that you have to go zero contact. You have to go zero contact. You can't text them, you can't call them, you can't do that. You have to flip that discard where they can't get you back. What I mean by that is you must discard them. You must be discarding them. And then you have to understand that their behavior is going to become more erratic. They're going to become more ugly. They're going to be more impulsive. They're going to be more compulsive. It's going to be very destructive. And you got to have the strength to stay out of it. And I think that's what helped in my situation. These support groups were in my ear saying, all right, this is what's going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours. Be ready for it. It's going to be bad. We saw my property, my baseball cards, my cards be destroyed live. We saw doxing of medical records. Everything about my anatomy, your performance in bed. They're going to start talking about your family. They're going to do whatever they can do to convince other people that you're this horrible person. And you just have to be ready for it. And you don't want to go, you can't be running back in and fixing everything. You just got to sit back. And one of the things that happened in my situation is right as something was happening that was going to draw me back in, I had support group and I had the right people in my ear going, just wait 24 hours before you do anything. Wait 24 hours and see what happens. Because if you don't respond, they're going to go right back on the attack, and that's what happened. And as you get further and further away, and as you find more constructive things in your life, you'll start to realize, you'll start to see the game. You'll start to see other people that are similar. You will start to see that is hoovering. That Hoover, meaning the Hoover vacuum, they're trying to suck you back in. You got to stay away. The final thing you have to remember, once you've done zero contact and you moved on, you have to understand that they're never gone. They are never gone. And it's really, really hard if you have children involved, or you're married to one, or you have a certain environment where at some point in time you're going to have to, have some sort of communication, i.e. divorce, in my case, annulment, things like that, where, or you're co-parenting. You're going to have to do that. In my situation, I maintain a relationship with my daughter, and, they're in a hurricane situation, zero contact with the narcissist, but still the other is able to reach out. They need money, they need resources, we provide it for them. I keep my daughter on my insurance. The Volvo is hers. As long as she can maintain the maintenance on the car, I continue to make the payment. She's still my daughter. It is not their fault. And you're going to have to do that in your relationship, but and it's tricky to do. If you can't do zero contact, in my case, it was zero contact. The last, it happened on April 16th, everybody, Avita, whoever that is, happened. And then the last time we texted was on the 23rd of April. And after that, I went zero contact. Texting from every so often, here and there. But you got to go zero contact. And then I think it was probably about June 1st to June 15th, where I unsubscribed to everything. I don't watch anything anymore. But we're in a community where, everybody talks about, you can know what you want about anybody by just looking at Twitter. It's still amazing to me that people, and they know who they are, that have built their channels talking about certain people and certain individuals. And if you really look at a lot of channels, I won't mention any of them, but if you take one person out of the channel and then you look at the rest of their content, it's really non-existent. And you have that. And in our case, in my case, and other people that have had to deal with narcissists, you're always going to kind of know what's going on. It's so hard to go zero contact. But people have come to me and they have said things like, had you hear this? I said, no, I really don't watch it anymore. And that's a narcissist. So just remember the love bombing stage, the degrading stage, the discard stage, and after that happens, the hoovering to get you back, and zero contact is the key. And it's hard, but it gets easier. Trust me, it gets easier. But Ladies Night had a really good stream about narcissism. I thought a lot of people showed up for it. Again, there was someone that was on panel that communicates with somebody that I believe is a narcissist, and maybe that'll come up in this vlog or not. I don't know. So that's the one thing I wanted to touch on. The other thing is this swatting, you know, cops showing up at people's houses. I remember about 2 weeks ago when Katie's got swatted, and part of the community was talking about it. Another part of the community was trying to debunk it, and it's amazing how good YouTubers with good platforms get everybody to watch and then try to figure out how they're wrong and try to debunk whatever they're doing. It's not about getting swatted. Did a cop show up at her house? Yeah, sure they did. They could have showed up for anything, though. They didn't swat them. There was no SWAT. They didn't come knock the doors down, come through the windows, confiscate equipment. They didn't do stuff like that. What they did, it could have been simply somebody that called a welfare check. I will tell you this, as my qualification, I would say when I lived out in the condo, even after my ex left, I probably had the cops show up at my house at least a dozen times for different things. And after a while, they quit because the person that they were coming to check on no longer even lived there. And I think what we have to understand is when we're calling in to make people's life miserable, it does make their lives uncomfortable. So if that's important to you to make somebody's life uncomfortable, okay, I guess you're going to do that. But at the end of the day, those cops don't hate the person that you're calling them for. They actually want to do whatever measure it takes to stop the phone calls from happening. And normally, more than half the time, it's to figure out who's making the phone calls and get them to stop. Because at the end of the day, the person that they're checking up on is their responsibility as far as to protecting them, to make sure that no harm befalls them. In my situation in North Topsail Beach, when I lived there, I knew all the cops. I knew the people had called. I knew when they called. And because of my job, I would see them and they would give me the names of the people. And they knew after a while, they actually they had a meeting. One of them said that 1896 New River Inlet Drive, apartment 1104, which was my condo, we're not even responding to any welfare checks there. We're not going to respond to any noise complaints there. We're just not going to do it anymore. And hopefully it's not legitimate because we can't waste our time on it. And they knew that most of the time there was nobody living there. And I maintained that as a residence for a while after we moved out. And people would there'd be a live stream going on in one place and they would call a welfare check at the wrong address. And they knew that. And law enforcement understood that. So when you're saying people are getting swatted, when you're calling the cops to go to Pam and Rick's house, when you're calling the cops to go to Katie's house, when you're calling the cops to go to anybody's house, understand they're going to go because they have a duty to do it. But you're really a good content creator and someone with a good platform is going to take those lemons and make them into lemonade. And they're going to get the community to talk about it, and that's going to get everybody else to go run over and look at the channels again. That's swatting. I've had the cops come to my house more times than anybody else that I know on here. And that's for dubious things, I understand. And a lot of times the people that they were going to check up on weren't even there. And it was really kind of silly. So that's it. That's my thing on swatting. The narcissist thing is, I had somebody that got with me the other day, and they said, you know, somebody did a stream on you. And I went and I looked at the stream and I watched it, and if I was into getting doxxed, I would send that individual my address here so they can send me a Christmas card, because they don't really get the views anymore that they used to. But I think of their last 10 streams that they've done, I think that Ron's got the most views when he talked about me as anybody. And that's a little bit, I think that Ron and TT would be a great couple, because there's your female narcissist and there's your male narcissist in our community. If you look at the history, and I know him sort of, and I would go into his place and after about an hour there, and he's a good host, but he's really, really look at me, listen to me, and if you say one thing out of alignment for what he is trying to do or say or portray, you're going to immediately become the villain. Now, you guys remember the night when we had the live stream when I was there, when Skeeter was there, when AV was there, and Ron went to sleep. You remember that? And I think that was a couple of people like went full frontal on the live stream that Skeeter and AV were handling, and I kind of checked out. You're talking about somebody that is needed friends, and he needed people to help them or check up on him, and we all went to have a good time, and the person, you know, ends up making it all about them. You know, they're going to drink beer, they're going to smoke, and then they're going to take a few Ativan and eat the Ativan and then pass out in their bed, and the rest of us are left to take care of him. And in my case, since I was a designated driver that night, I decided that, that there was a 12-year-old special needs child also in the house and a bunch of fucked up individuals. You know, so they have a way of taking their situation, even a happy situation, and turning it and say, look at me, hear me, see me, pay attention to me, even at the expense of their own family members. In his case, you saw what he did to Sarah Burchett. You know what he did. I'm living with somebody, and there was much chagrin about what had happened and who called ATX's work. I've seen the report. I've seen whose name was on the report. And then you've got a couple other people that were in the community that he was dating or not dating, and it ended up poorly. Everybody, it ends up poorly with that guy. Everybody. And we act like, people are acting like they don't know what he did or that this happened. But there was no reason, especially male against female, where they kind of hone in on people. And these people are great people. Oh, I'm going to have them on my show, and they're this and they're that. And then when they don't get something that they want, or somebody kind of calls them out a little bit, all of a sudden they're terrible people, and people's work ends up getting called and this and that. And I have been to somebody's work too. I am not exonerating myself, because I've been on that side of it as well. And after a while, you just kind of look around and go, what's the common denominator of all this? Why can't you get along with anybody? You have people here who are trying to be your friends. You got people that are trying to get you to get past some terrible things that you happen, and you keep bringing it up. This is not about you all the time. It's about a community. And that's what I offer. So when you think about the things I mentioned about narcissism, when you think about the people that are in our community, and you go look at Diane's live stream, consider consider the love bombing, the degrading, the discarding. If you've been through it, you know what I'm talking about, and how they try to bring people back. And you've had people that will hold a narcissist accountable for their behavior. Hold them accountable for it. They will never, ever, never, ever. They may say, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, but you'll never get an honest apology. It's always going to turn around being, well, I will forgive you. I have no more time to argue with you. I am going to let it go. But you'll never hear a narcissist go, I was wrong. Sure, you might see the fake live streams where they're apologizing, but at the end of the day, they are who they are. It's all about them. They have family that love them. They have friends that hang on as long as they can, and they're going to go from partner to partner. They're going to go from relationship to relationship, and it's going to end up badly, and it is never their fault. I'm going to leave you with that. There was no reason for there to be a live stream about me like that. There just wasn't. It was just, you have people that, you're talking about somebody that had a pretty successful channel a couple years ago. If you look at the guy's top 10 live streams, he's got 60,000, 70, he's got a bunch of them. But he self-destructed based on something that happened in his life that was horrible. But he blamed everybody else. He would not do anything for himself. Blamed everybody else, went from person to person, calling people's work, calling people's loved ones, trying to sabotage like they're doing bad things. You should see this stuff. And goes away and then comes back, and everybody else is kind of moved on. Notice when you mention somebody's name that's kind of moved on from the old school and they're kind of doing okay, it's always something wrong with them. They're this type of person. I didn't do nothing to the guy. He's mad at me because I went and I was on a panel with somebody that he beefed with. And he said that. But if you go through that live stream that everybody was in there, he'd say, oh, I carry 40 people in my live stream and this and that. I have 150. They were all there to hear you talk shit about somebody else. And all those people, minus about the 30 real loyal ones, are all over in this other person's live stream. They're all do it. You see it in all the different live streams. They weren't there because, you had some great content. Yeah, sure, there's a bunch of them that were there that think I'm an asshole, but what he put out there really wasn't that necessary. And at the end of the day, that was his most popular live. I mean, a guy that's had 60, 70, 80,000 views in certain live streams years ago, and I'm his #1 draw now. I don't know. Like I said, I send you my address so you can send me a thank you. You can send me a thank you card, but I don't need to get doxxed anymore. I don't think Mandy wants us to get doxxed. But that's it. I wanted to weigh in on those things. You know, the narcissism's it's a topic. There's a lot of us that are part of that are inside of that situation. And narcissists breed narcissists. And I'm not above saying because I was in a narcissistic relationship so long that I didn't develop some narcissistic traits. Every single one of us. And the second thing is the whole swatting thing. It's fodder. It's great content for us, and people that have had the cops show up at their house, they're going to live stream it. They're going to, if they can. Katie live streamed it. Tricia live streams it. I don't know about Pam and Rick's situation because I believe they would have live streamed it. I believe that they would have done something in live stream part of it, because these are people that can take any lemons and turn some kind of fruit with it. I'll touch on buying subs a little bit later, and I have more proof about that. But at the end of the day, you know, you just have a good one. Peace out.